Iran and the P5+1 have reached an agreement during their latest talks on the country's nuclear program. The political level discussions were held in Geneva on Thursday and on Friday.
We had very intensified negotiations yesterday and today, but it was very good, very constructive, and we made good progresses. We were able to find solution for almost every question. There is no difference now between the two sides, but the question is we have to take these solutions to the capitals for final confirmation. As soon as the final decision is made by the capitals, either tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, it would be announced, and we will start the first step of the Geneva Agreement.
Time frame from when the agreement is announced in the next few days to when the agreement is implemented?
Yes, that would be announced. An initial date has been decided, but once the whole idea is confirmed by the capitals, it would be announced.
Days, weeks, months, an indication?
No, less than 10 days perhaps.
So basically you have finished all the negotiations, you're just waiting for the capitals to say yes?
Yes, exactly.
But why did you come out looking not very happy?
Well, we had very lengthy negotiations, very intensified negotiations. I don't know, I'm happy.
Abbas Araghchi led the Iranian negotiating team. The deputy to EU's foreign policy chief, Helga Schmidt, represented the P5+1 group, comprising of the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council, plus Germany. The two negotiators also had a trilateral meeting with their American counterpart, Wendy Sherman. Iran and the P5+1 have held several rounds of negotiations following an interim deal which they reached in Geneva back in November. The deal was aimed at resolving a dispute over Iran's nuclear program. Well, let's talk about this with our correspondent Nargis Mawalaghi, who is in Geneva, whom we just saw in that little clip there, talking to Iran's deputy prime minister there, Abbas Araghchi. Nargis, it's really interesting how Abbas Araghchi, when asked, you don't look very happy from that, other reporters said, no, he is. Are we to look at this, the execution part that has been reached as an agreement, now to be confirmed by the capitals, as Mr. Araghchi said? Could there still be some hitch there if the capitals don't agree to whatever was agreed on today?
I think that's a fair assessment. We are definitely one big step closer after these 2 days of negotiations. So I think Mr. Araghchi would be happy with that, and he was serious looking coming out of these talks, but they were serious talks. They were lengthy talks. They went on till about 1:30 a.m. local time on Thursday night, so I'm sure he was very tired coming out of those lengthy negotiations, but as he did say, he was happy with the outcome. And I think it was a good outcome, one that throughout the day and yesterday I was almost thinking wouldn't happen. I wasn't expecting a full resolution to come out of these talks, but they have done, and I think that is positive. We know there was 3 technical sticking points, and what Mr. Araghchi said was that there are no remaining differences now on those technical sticking points. So in essence, what has happened is that there is an agreement on how to implement the first step of the interim nuclear deal made in November in Geneva. That's what happened round the table here with the representatives, with the US Under-Secretary Wendy Sherman on Thursday, and with the EU and Iranian delegation here on Friday. We now look towards the next 48 hours that will be crucial as these decisions go to the capitals. In a Farsi section of that interview, Mr. Araghchi said that some of the decisions are sensitive, and that's why they are being sent to the capitals for the final decision. The hope is, of course, the best case scenario is that all capitals accept the agreement as it is in the next 48 hours. An official agreement is made that everything is fine. And within 10 days, Mr. Araghchi said, we will start implementing the first step of that Geneva deal, his words. So I'm looking at 20th of January there, possibly for that to start. What's the worst case scenario? New issues, spanners in the works are thrown in by one government or another, or that there are issues raised, and then at that point I think all sides will have to reassess, is it back to the negotiating table, or is that actually something that can derail the whole process? So we have to look forward in the next few days and weeks in terms of that. But the negotiations here on Thursday and Friday have had a positive conclusion, and there seems to be agreement now on how to implement at least the first steps of that 6-month interim deal made by the P5+1 in Iran back in November.
And this is just a question to ask your opinion on. I find it very interesting, Nargis, that we went breaking news with this. This is a pretty important, I would say, newsworthy piece of news for other media outlets to cover, but it seems like it wasn't the case. I mean, Reuters came out with the first piece, which was based on how we reported the developments here. Is there much media coverage there on this? And if not, why do you think that is?
Well, I've been in touch with Catherine Ashton's spokesperson, Michael Mann. He hasn't got comment yet. So it might just be because all the partners of the talks haven't come out with comment yet. It might be for other reasons that you might have to assess. But there wasn't international media coverage of this. I'm sure there will be if this goes back to the capitals and there is an announcement. But we have to understand the context of these talks, because from November, where there was a big media coverage, to now, where we are now, there's been a lot that has happened. There's been interests, there's been lobbies, there's been countries, there's been entities that have really tried to derail this process. And those interests may lie in certain international media outlets on the spectrum this way or that way. There is definitely a need by different sides to assess what is happening and make it look like this way or that way through a certain prism or opinion. And sometimes maybe that's why there is this delay in reporting or assessing what is happening. But in essence, the political will has been there from November until now, and the sides have kept going to try and get to an agreement, and that is where we are now. If ultimately that will be enough, that is a different question. That is what we wait to see now, really in the next 48 hours.
Thank you very much for that. We appreciate it. Nargis Mabalaghi there talking to us from Geneva. Thank you, Nargis.